right. I think we are live. Ready to go?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're super excited that you're here. Happy New Year. If we haven't had a chance to connect yet, we're excited to continue our SAM best practices. Nicholas has an awesome topic on saving money and optimizing, taking advantage of Flexera's technology, and got some great insights for us to help kick off the year for our first discussion. Feel free to put in the chat, hello, where you're calling in or you're dialing in from. We'd love to see that. Also, if you have questions throughout, please take advantage of the Q&A. That helps us move things along and understand if we're on the right topic and we're piquing your interest. So, without further ado, Nicholas, welcome.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks for the introduction. So I will start sharing my screen and maybe switching off the camera. And today, that would be a pleasure for the first time of the year of 2025 to start with, I would say, a high-value topic, which is how can you save hundreds of thousands or millions in licenses with optimizing your virtualization architecture. So that's a quite specific topic, but it's actually a very big one. That's the biggest one if you're on-premise and virtualize your server applications. So let's go through this, and I will share my screen. So,
go.
Okay. So. Okay. So I hope everybody sees the.
There we go.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's move on and go full screen. Okay. So today's topic. This is the 35th session of the SAM Best Practice webinars, which started a while ago. I would say in July 2021, this is a pleasure today to go through a topic that will help you hopefully. Using the best way, and this is why this is best practice, the best way, the Flexera technology to understand your license consumption, which is the basics, but also understand where you could save money by taking action. And so that will be the biggest topic of today's call, the optimization and optimizing your architectures. And we'll start with some news, very short news. A little bit of context with this Become a SAM Champion series that we are going on. This is the fourth call of this series. And then we will see how complexity of licensing triggers a need for optimization and understanding of the possible optimizations. We'll then go through context and have a very hands-on session where I will give some examples and some pointers on how to manage and optimize your architecture thanks to the Flexera ITAM or also FlexNet Manager reports in place. But also we will go one step further with additional reporting with a Power BI solution that deep dives into this topic. So last session to start with before the news. That was the third session of Become a SAM Champion for the Become a SAM Champion series. And the topic was around influencing the license optimal consumption. So typically, how can you make sure that your license consumption for Windows Server, SQL Server, Red Hat is optimized and takes into account the reality of your architecture, and typically, using allocations or using, license restrictions, you can make a big difference between, for instance, licensing everything in Windows Server Data Center in your ESX environments, so all your clusters with Windows Server Data Center, or picking up the right standard edition or data center edition, depending on your clusters, I would say, density. The recording, as usual, is on YouTube. You can click on the link, and it is part of the channel of the YouTube playlist, where you can find any of the other 34 sessions that have been recorded. All the questions were addressed during the webinar, and as usual, we will and Mark we will have a look to what are your questions in the chat. So don't hesitate to ask questions. This is a slightly new UI probably for you, because we have moved to a new tool to manage the sessions, the webinars. But don't hesitate asking questions, and Mark will relay, yes, and I will address them hopefully during the call that's more practical for everybody. So no question to document, because the other ones were in the recording already. So some news. We have a new version of ITAM that got released back in January, so very recently. And I've just taken a screenshot of the classical documentation. So I'm sure that every time, but that's quite practical for you to know. So if you go to docs.flexera.com and go to and pick up, for instance, Flexera 1, you will see that in the IT asset management, there is this feature by release, and you will see all the history of the new features that got implemented. And you will potentially, so if you're on-premise, for instance, that's a good anticipation of what will come, because we have a number of, I would say, a large majority of common features. This may evolve in the reporting, particularly, that's for the future. But up to now, what you have on the Flexera 1 ITAM will come with FlexNet Manager, let's say 2025 R1, for instance, planned for June, typically. So here you see not a big release. This is a monthly release. There was a big release with the 2024 R2 that was a accumulation of all the features since June 2024. Sorry. Here you see that you have an OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Enhancements, which is that if you use the agents on this platform, on this cloud infrastructure, on the VMs on this cloud infrastructure, automatically the VMs will be flagged as OCI VMs, just like it is the case today for AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. And that will be the case, and that is the case now with the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. And another thing which is around the Flexera Kubernetes agent, where you can specify the cluster name. Otherwise, minor announcements, but this one actually I didn't notice, but I'm glad to see it. VMware vSAN was actually a big requirement from customers, and the vCenter data collection was recognizing correctly vCenter, vSphere with the right editions, but not vSAN. So that's good news. It means there will be less, I would say, imports or data extension to do to also manage vSAN, and it resonates quite well with today's session, because we spend time on VMware optimization, which is quite a topic, and that also applies to vSAN. Okay, so I'm moving on back to the presentation. Okay, and the other small news, which is nearly personal news, I would say, NRSAM Consulting released a Power BI solution that you will see a little bit today, because it reports a lot on optimization. And that there is a LinkedIn post which contains a short video where you can see an introduction, a teaser, I would say, a 2 minutes teaser. And you can request the links to the 15 minutes and 30 minutes presentation that will deep dive into this solution and do an extensive demonstration. Okay, so let's start with the context of this series. This become a SAM champion with Flexera technology. We're slowly moving up. Oh, that's a pity. Okay, so that's not the right screenshot, but it doesn't matter. So we have actually moved one step up, which is this fourth session. So today's session will be, so we have started this session back in September, I would say. And the idea that there is a path in this session that will lead you from the bottom of what we can call the Maslow pyramid for SAM, bottom, which is around making things under control and having the basics in place, which are so important, not always funny, but so important to be in place. And we had, we're in the fourth session, actually one step up, which is around taking action. So we started with how can you make sure that you can trust your inventory. This is the foundation. Without that, you cannot be successful for sure. Second session was around having the licenses correctly configured, and you can find the sessions on the YouTube playlist. And that's quite important, because if you don't compute correctly your license consumption, you will fail reporting and understanding the new licenses needed or the possible optimization. We moved up again in this pyramid to more value, I would say, with the third session, which was the last one, about making sure that the license compute the optimal license consumption for the big elephants like Windows Server, SQL Server, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And this time is, we're climbing. We keep climbing, and this session is around taking action. The previous session was, given your infrastructure, what is the best licensing? What are the optimal licenses needed? This one is, why would not you change your virtualizations typically to take advantage of the huge saving that you could do just by moving a virtual machine? For instance, for Oracle database, that's a very big topic, but we will see that there are many topics actually. And then, we'll have another session on the subscriptions and maintenance, how you can manage the user subscriptions, understand the usage, and optimize. And the last one actually was already delivered. So we started with the last session, I would say, which was around, managing enterprise groups and, chargeback reporting. So you can already have a look to this one. If you prefer reading than watching, you can go to the NRSAM Consulting blog, which is my blog, and each actually of these sessions, with a mix of other sessions around you will love this, which give additional information and a possible solution that can be delivered by NRSAM Consulting. These sessions were actually already part of a track that was called Dots Connected. And you see here, we are at this stage, optimize your, have your infrastructure clever and optimized. And, just to take an example, if you click on this one, you will see, I can zoom a little bit. You will see that what we'll discuss today is developed a slightly different way, and you will get the sort of a written version of this session that we have today. Today we'll deep dive more into reporting because there are news about that and new solutions. But that's what you. That's on the blog you can access all of these topics and more. So I will start, so this is a big section of today's call. I will start with a statement, which is moving a VM across clusters takes 5 minutes and can save you $1 million or more. That's very true for an application or applications like Oracle database enterprise or on Oracle database enterprise options. And today we will see how the reporting and the analysis that you get on top of inventory, that must be good to make sure that you have the right picture of what exists, but you will see how you can spot and find the possible optimizations and the required moves, for instance, to save a lot of money, and how these optimizations are managed by ITAM, and also how they can turn into savings. So I will start, and I will show also this SAM optimization hub. To put some context, there are some different types of license optimizations. The first one is around, counting the license consumption an optimal way. That's exactly the last session we had last time, and that's what you have in this SAM optimization hub. The top left, dashboard is around, how much you saved thanks to ITAM. That will give you an advice on the clever decisions, particularly on Windows Server, SQL Server, and Red Hat. Typically, where you should use the standard edition of Windows Server, in which clusters, where you should use the, let's say, standard enterprise edition of SQL Server, and data center node edition of Red Hat Linux. And these, piles, charts show, how much you saved between the do me decision, which is I will cover all ESX servers with data center edition, which, by the way, is not completely do me. Many companies do that because that's the easy but expensive way to go, and the true consumption that you get in ITAM that will actually split between standard edition and data center edition, depending on your cluster density. So that's the first part of the hub, and that's the first type of optimization that the one we went through during the last session. Today's session is about modifying your architecture to optimize your licenses, and this is actually, this first bar of the SAM optimization hub. You see here, save by taking action. And you will always see Oracle in the top 5 of your savings. So on this one, you have actually two types of optimization. One, which is taking action on the infrastructure, or how your VMs are architectured, I would say, or on the clusters. And the other one, the other part of this hub, or this dashboard, is about the user licenses, which will be actually the next session. And user licenses, typically, on Microsoft. So if you drill down, you will actually see the full report that shows the name user optimization. And you will understand application by application, user per user, what are the current subscribe plans, what are the authorized applications or bundles related to the plans, what is the actual usage, and what could be the downgrade, for instance, subscription downgrade, or even, ways of stopping subscriptions. So this part of the dashboard is about, end user applications. So today we will focus on the middle part, which is here illustrated only on with Oracle. You will see that it goes quite deep, but it also we will also focus on Windows Server. We'll also focus on VMware applications because the topics are quite often the same. And you will see that with what ITAM provides, and with a little bit of additional reporting value you can get, you can cover many publishers, many applications, and actually it really represents a lot of potential saving, provided you take action, of course. If you don't touch anything, if you don't stop your subscriptions here, or if you don't move your VMs to optimal clusters, you will still need to pay what the license consumption gives, which is very often very high and could be decreased. So this pointer was already in the last session, but it's actually relevant also to the new session. This is a blog post that I made back in 2021, and the big picture has not changed, unfortunately. The name of this post is "When Good Intentions and Goodwill and sincerity lead to licensing nightmares and financial waste. So this is a long title, but in this quite a detailed post, you will see that the evolution of the technology, such as multi-threading or multi-cores for the multi-threadings for the processors or hyper-threadings for the cores. The virtualization, of course, that added flexibility, but also moves of the virtual machines. All of this has led to each publisher taking decisions and trying to find licensing rules that were, I would say, fair. Are they fair? That's a big question mark. But at least rules that reflect the fact that you don't pay for one installation consumes one license, which is what happens for the typical per user licensing or per device. But new rules that have included a lot of complexity around a more powerful processor should pay more than a less powerful one. So you have factors that have been created. IBM is very good in that with the sub-capacity licensing. So typically, you will have factors applying to processor types. Oracle has also a factor which is quite simple, either 0.5 or 1, depending on the type of architectures and processors you have. So typically, Linux or IBM AIX will count for 1, and the rest will count for 0.5. But Oracle has included another rule, which is a very expensive one for customers, which is called soft partitioning, and it is nothing but soft because it's basically if you have one virtual machine with one Oracle database enterprise edition in a big cluster, you need to pay for any of the ESX servers because potentially the VM can move across hosts within the cluster, and they even went one step up with the vCenter level. So this is the soft partitioning. Microsoft has its own rule around virtualization that tries to sort of limit the fact that things are moving, and you don't want, if you have 10 physical ESX servers where a virtual machine can move, and it becomes more complex, of course, if you have 10 virtual machines on 10 physical hosts, or 100 VMs on 10 ESX servers. They implemented a while ago, actually, a rule about the 90 days. And sorry, it's not 90. Okay, so I just need to make the fix. So it's a 90-day rule, which basically says if you are not covered by software assurance, and the rule has been made a little bit smoother recently with Windows Server. The rule now for both SQL Server and Windows Server is if you have software assurance, there is a way to forget about where the VM could move. So in the end, you pay for the snapshot that you have at the time you take your inventory and compute your license consumption. But if you don't have software assurance, you need actually, you're not authorized to license, so reuse a license on another host for 90 days once it has been used for a given ESX server, for instance. So typically, if you have a SQL Server enterprise licenses, which are no longer maintained, so let's say SQL Server 2016, if you have, let's say, one virtual machine within a cluster installed within a cluster which has a 5 ESX server, in the end, given the movements, you need to be aligned with the Microsoft rule. You need to license each of the ESX servers, or eventually you could use affinity rules that will stick the virtual machine to the host. So that's one way. Actually, I will not insist today, but that's one way of changing the architecture that works with Microsoft but not Oracle. You can actually put in place affinity rules that will allow you to be sure that a virtual machine is not moving across hosts, and you can sort of limit the licenses need if you don't have such thresholds. So that's for Microsoft, this 90-day rule, which is actually quite complicated to handle. And the last one is VMware. That there was a full session back in July 2024 on VMware. So VMware has a more and more expensive rule that moved from host processors to cores with the addition of bundles. Again, so here the licensing applies to the host, so you don't care so much about the virtual machines, but in the end, having many hosts with few VMs will be an expensive choice. So we will see. That's here again. It's about understanding what are your clusters and your clusters density. Are you using stacking for the virtual machines? And if you don't, you may pay a lot because licensing a full ESX server for vSAN, now the agent collects the data, or for vSphere Enterprise. If you license the full host and have just one VM, it will become an expensive approach. Each publisher found some rules. By understanding correctly the rules, you will be able to sort of apply and comply with the rules, and even optimize, because in the end, if you have the control, if you know what you do, if you know how to size the license needs and the potential optimization, you can take action and save money, a lot of money. So I will also put one slide of context, which is the IT ops versus SAM teams antinomic goals. IT ops, the only focus of IT ops is let's have it working. An IT infrastructure must be efficient and performant, must be flexible. So virtualization with vMotion is perfect because it allows, for instance, to upgrade one of the hosts. For instance, or apply maintenance, the virtual machines will automatically move to the next host available in the cluster, and the cluster will, split the load across available hosts. So you have indeed a nice flexibility with virtualization. IT ops also want scalable infrastructures. If you have, let's say, a virtual machine that will have a variable activity, it's good to be in a clusterized environment where actually you can move and shift the VMs as the resource consumption will raise or decrease on the ESX servers. That's by being able to load and balance the load that you will be able to scale. Redundant. That's another big topic about IT ops. You need to make sure that you have a secured environment that eventually will keep working in case of major issues such as power outage in one data center. Architectures are made redundant to ensure a high availability for applications. So this is nice, and that's a great job. IT ops make it work, but on the other side, you have the boring, sub managers like you and I, who will try to keep an eye on the license consumption. And the goal of sub managers is to keep license costs under control. So it's about anticipating the licensing costs for deployments. It's all about keeping visibility over the evolutions of deployments, keeping control, and as you see, there is a sort of contradiction between the goals, knowing that if you educate IT ops, they totally understand, and maybe the best way to educate people is first to communicate. So pragmatically, if mistakes have been done, so best is to have a process to make sure that every time you deploy a new virtual machine which is, let's say, installed with Oracle Database Enterprise, and with a given option, you know where to put it, and ideally you put it on an IBM IAX LPAR, which is in a pool, which has capping. That's a topic we'll discuss. But if a mistake was done, or if no process is in place, which should evolve midterm, you can actually reactively request for changes. As I said, moving virtual machines across hosts or cluster. This is not what people love to do, because it means there are some implications. There is a process for the change. The vCenter team will hate you. But in the end, if the change represents hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, it will be applied because the money is at stake. And that the second way you can actually educate and maybe turn your IT operations to something more efficient in a license perspective. It's by making application owners also being the cost owners of the license which are consumed. I've seen that a lot in my life. If the team that manages Oracle database is involved in the Oracle renewals, which is often the case, but if there is a sort of a chargeback process which is applied to the organizations, suddenly people will be more careful about the impact of what they do when they implement a new virtual machine, for instance, with Oracle Database Enterprise. So there are solutions, but the first step into finding the solution is to analyze the data and having the visibility, which is what Flexera provides. So, so we have a common topic, which is virtualization can have a high cost, because rules around virtualization are complicated. But each publisher has a different story. And here, I pasted a screenshot of the post that I was mentioning in the previous slide. And you see in this post, each of the rule and story has been detailed a little bit. So, for instance, and to each, I would say, rule, you have an adaptation that will allow you optimization. So let's go one by one, and then we will go into details. But typically, Oracle, on sub-partitioning, one big saving is to specialize the clusters by option group. So typically, if you're able to understand virtual machine per virtual machine, which are the used Oracle database options, if you create smaller clusters which are specialized, one cluster for advanced compression and diagnostic pack, another for diagnostic pack, tuning pack, and advanced compression, which is actually a different set of options, you will obtain the best optimized virtualized architecture, making sure that your cluster's number of cores are aligned with the needs of the VMs. So typically, if you have let's say 8 VMs of 16 cores, which have all a set of options, the best optimization would be to have a small cluster, even I would say one ESX server cluster, which is having 16 cores with these VMs. And I would even say you can have less cores on your cluster than cores deployed on the VMs. So it's called stacking. You can definitely have more VM cores installed than cluster cores that provide the resource, because it happens that not all of the VMs work and have need power at the same time. So that's a good way of splitting the load. So Oracle had partitioning. That's something I realized more recently. And to be honest, I won't have here the report to show you, but I implemented it with a Swiss customer. So the pool capping on let's say LPARs is a very powerful way of actually not consuming, and that also applies to IBM, which I did not put, but that's exactly the same story. If you're able to determine where installed virtual machines, helpers, have been put together with the same products under pools which are capped, you can actually determine if you are using the capping of the pool or the host. That's another way you can do things. So if you saturate the saturation, if you saturate your pools with putting more VMs cores than the number of cores kept for the pool. I will show eventually real stories, but you will see that that's a great way to actually not pay more, because the pool capping, just like the number of cores of a host, is accepted by Oracle or IBM as the consumption, core consumption that you need to apply to everything which is under the host or under the pool even. Let's move on with Windows Server and SQL Server. So first, thing is, like said in the last session, choose the best edition. Microsoft has decided that you could have an unlimited number of VMs under Data Center Edition, or covered by Data Center Edition license on an ESX server. That's great. But this Data Center Edition license is it's something like 8 times more expensive. I think, or 8 or 7. So then the standard edition. So it makes sense to actually take the best edition and cover low density ESX servers with standard edition, and stacked ESX servers with the Data Center Edition. A second thing that we will see that you need to specialize your clusters by operating system and version. The two things, but one is by operating system. Don't mix on an ESX or in a cluster. Don't mix Red Hat Linux VMs and Windows Server VMs. It's stupid, because you will need to license the host in the end. If you have a good number of VMs per host, you will need to license the physical cores of the hosts, but you will license them twice. One time for Windows Server, one time for Red Hat, and that's a pity, because the resource that the VM are consuming are either for Windows Server VMs or for Red Hat, but you pay too much if you license twice the hosts. And then the last topic for Windows Server and SQL Server as well, actually, is stacking the VMs. So if you have let's say 50 virtual machines per host in a cluster with Windows Server the standard edition installed, you will make a great saving. So here, probably the number of cores of the VMs will be above the total number of cores of the ESX servers, but it works. It's something to check with the performance SIM, of course. But the good thing is that you will pay for just Data Center Edition for the host, while each new VM will come for free. What we could say. And the same thing with SQL Server Enterprise Edition. Let's say you have a number of VMs on your SQL Server cluster. The fact that you reach the capping of the host, because each virtual machine has a minimum number of cores of 4 for the consumption. But once you have reached the number of cores of the host and you license the host with SQL Server Enterprise Edition, any additional VM will come for free. So that's these are quite common topics, but slightly different approaches given the rules. Red Hat actually will be fast, because it's exactly like Windows Server. You choose the best edition, but here Red Hat has a rule that says you need to be consistent within a cluster. You can't mix in a cluster the Red Hat Enterprise Linux Data Center Node Edition and 7 Node Edition. So once you know by cluster what is your sort of density, it's better to you can choose the best edition. And again, exactly like Windows Server, if you specialize your cluster by operating system, so this is a reverse as a Windows Server, and if you stack your installed VMs, in the end, you get an optimal consumption. So you pay for a number of licenses, but you, I would say, take advantage of managing more VMs for the same price. And VMware. VMware, actually, I was a little bit fast in the copy and paste. VMware is a slightly different the situation. It's all about stacking again, but basically you need to compare the VMs cores, deployed VM cores, with the host cores. And of course, if you have a large number of cores for the host and few for the VMs, that's a pity because you are sort of paying a lot of licenses and underusing them, because the goal of an ESX server is not to be an ESX server, it is to manage VMs. So if it is idle, unless you have a redundant architecture, which is possible and which is a good use case, otherwise, having a sort of I would say random occupations of your ESX servers is a big cost. Okay, so let's start with the Oracle optimization. I talked a lot, but I'm going to show more now. I'm going to show more, and maybe best is that I go to a live instance to show you a little bit of this information. So I'm going to connect. I'm going to connect to a cloud test instance. And you will see that each publisher has a story. So in the end, ITAM and Flexera Manager have these reports adapted to the specific publisher requirements and potential optimizations. So maybe I should start with showing the SAM optimization hub, which I really encourage you to run. There are 2 or 3 hubs that I would recommend. These are the hubs I implemented as a product manager and developed, the code for. This is the SAM Operations Hub that gives you visibility about your data quality KPIs. The more red, the less good. And the next one that is interesting to run is the SAM Optimization Hub. And you will see this report is one that we will deep dive on, maybe on my local instance because it has more data. But another report, and we'll start with this one, gives your detailed consumption and optimization. So you can go to reporting, save reports, and here you will see in the optimization you have this Oracle license consumption details and optimization. That's the first one of the reports I wanted to show you. And here, maybe I'm going to zoom a little bit. Okay. So here it's all about giving you the details of the details. So if I open the, for instance, Oracle Database Enterprise Processor, you will see the consumption, which is explained, and that's one of the complicated thing. You remember I talked about this pool, for instance. So in a Solaris host, you may have a pool which has a number of cores. Here we see that it's not below the number of cores of the host, but you have the license consumption for Oracle. So here we have Solaris zones, which is hard partitioning, but we also have some clusters, which is soft partitioning. And this report will give you bits and bytes on how much you consume, and you can understand the consumption. And here, each line is about hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. So this is good to spend time on the details. You will understand the factor, you will understand the number of cores, eventually the capped number of cores, which applies to hard partitioning for Oracle. For IBM, it is the same type of calculation. And you will see in the end, so not on the hard partitioning side, because actually the what I did for the customer in Switzerland was adding a column which was, is your hard partitioning optimized? And every time the number of cores consumed by the VMs was above the number of cores of the total number of cores of the VMs. We have 2 cores here. 4 cores, was above the number of cores of the pool or above the number of cores of the host. It means, you are using the saturation, and that's good because you're maxing the deployments you have versus the licenses you pay. And there is an additional column, around optimization. And very quickly, you can understand if you have applied actually a good practice into deploying and putting all of your LPARs together with the same products, Oracle Database Enterprise, but this is true also for the Oracle options. So here, it's not so much about optimization, but more about how much is consumed. But if I go down, okay, so if I go down to this cluster, you see here, the classical and horrible story, which is you have one VM. Here we go. One virtual machine, which has 32 cores. It's quite a lot, actually, for a VM. And maybe this is demo data, but this VM is, consuming and triggering a consumption for the cluster. But unfortunately, this VM is in a host. Okay. This host is consuming for the total amount, for 8 cores, for instance, here. But unfortunately, all the hosts in the cluster should also consume. So here, this report will insist on your, potential optimization. That's this optimization value, because in the end, it compares the number of installed cores. We have actually 32 cores here, which is a little bit surprising, but why not? So here, it says, oh, lucky you maxed the consumption on this host at least, but unfortunately, each of the other hosts have 0 installed cores for Oracle Database Enterprise and are consuming. So I will move on because it takes time, but you see here a first level of optimization. I will actually, to spend more time in demos, you see here, this is the report we just showed, we just had a look to. Another thing is the partitioner rule impact. The Oracle rule theoretically forces you to count the consumption in sub-partitioning up to the cluster. The true story is about all vCenters for the recent versions of vCenter. But what Oracle admits very often is a cluster level partitioning. And here you understand with this report what are the incremental costs of versus the cluster partitioning. What would be the additional cost of licensing per vCenter, per all vCenters, and also there is a new column which is per affinity. So it also goes down to the cluster. It counts if you were doing hard partitioning on ESX, which I've seen very, very rarely, but it could be negotiated, or if you pay versus your true affinity rules. If a VM is is on a host and can't move due to an affinity rule, the and so here that the report that will show what are the consumption for the different types of partitioning with the one rules is this one, which is actually computing the target architecture. So I'm going to run it on my local instance. So as I said, the best architecture is when you have specialized your clusters and each cluster is actually specialized on a number of options. So I'm going to just have a little concern on the performance of my VM. In parallel, I will run it by here. So if you go to the SAM Optimization Hub, the Oracle bar, which is always very high, actually leads to this report that I'm going to run. And I'm going to run in parallel this the report locally, because there is more information and more interesting information, but performance will not be as good. So if we go to this, it's where this report lacks information. So basically, the report, I'm going to run it and show it in the web client, in the PowerPoint. But this report will actually show you where your virtual machines are, what are the consumptions for the various, what are the consumptions for the various hosts, and be starting to show here before we see it for true. You see here, each row is a virtual machine. It tells you which are the options in use in addition to Oracle Database Enterprise. And it gives you information such as, what are the instances which have all of these options. So it also goes down to the, instance level to analyze the options which are present in the VMs. And then, basically what it says is, this is your current architecture. We have this VM on this host in this cluster, but we suggest that you create a specialized cluster with Active Data Guard, Diagnostic Pack, and partitioning. This cluster would have 56 cores, which is nothing other than the sum of cores of the VMs, which have these options. And it also computes what would be the saving for each of the option on the cluster for the option, and globally actually for the option. So hopefully it has run. No, it's still running. So that was what I was fearing. My virtual machine is a little bit stuck. I'm not sure if it's upgrading or what, but so in the end, run this report. That's the simplest thing. You can even, group this report by location level, Let's say your data centers in EMEA and APAC and Americas should be managed separately. The report will actually automatically reconnect and regroup together the VMs to make sure that it suggests some, I would say, local clusters by data center. And in the end, these will be smaller clusters. But again, the goal is to say, I'm putting together the VMs and I'm putting together the VMs which have the same Oracle options in roles. And the quantity you see, 42 million euro, these are true optimization. So here, probably my demo data was actually a little bit, I had few VMs per cluster, which is boosting the optimization. But run this report and check the column, which is suggested optimization. You will see that this is really leading to millions of dollars. Okay, so just trying to see if it run, but I'm not sure actually. No. Okay, so I will move on in the PowerPoint. Let's move on. The other applications, I would say this is what I would call the extra mile. You see that on Oracle database and options, Flexera does a lot. On Windows Server, with the Windows Server optimization report, you also get a feeling, depending on the number of VMs per host, depending on the recommended, license for Windows Server per host. You get a feeling if your stacking of virtual machines is good or not. But actually, that's where the Power BI solution I presented, and I'm going to show now, is going one step further. because virtualization is all about counting things and comparing, for instance, the install cores with the okay. So this one is finished. You see here, each cluster, each group of virtual machine is represented. For instance, here the 3 VMs, which are in 1, 2, 3 clusters, so very low. I would say the VMs are spread across clusters. Each VM should be regrouped together, and you see here, what are the current cluster cores, what are the cluster cores with the sub options. So this is the sum of these cores actually, and if you have the recommended cluster core for these 3 options, you basically save. This is as stupid as that, but this is huge. 28 cores for Oracle database. It would be 30,000 with a good price with Oracle. 30 multiplied by 28, for instance, divided by 2. 30 multiplied by 14,000, and the total license that you currently consume on these 3 options. But you may also consume licenses for advanced compression standalone. You have actually, the difference between the both is your saving. And these calculations are quite complicated. They project the total and true consumption, and they compare the true consumption to the optimal consumption, which here are easily calculated across recommended clusters. So I'm just showing the Power BI solution by Enersan Consulting. So there are 2 dashboards in this Power BI solution, and each dashboard is focusing on a different persona. So some executive summary will be about total spend by publisher, renewal, contract renewals. What are the deployed applications with the possibility to drill down, for instance, and understand, more details. So here there was only one version, unfortunately. But so for instance, here you understand, which are your versions of the agent, Flexera, which have been deployed. And here you get the big picture on the chargeback and what are the costs, who consumes, what is cloud versus on-prem. So you get, the big picture. And the SAM Operations Hub, or SAM Operations Dashboard, goes deeper. It will show, the metrics about data quality, just like the SAM Operations Hub, but with the possibility actually to set the thresholds where you consider that this is good or bad. So you get here, a flexible view and a flexible way of setting up the data quality thresholds and limits. And if you go down, you have a full section on cluster analysis, and you see here that so you see here that this report, for instance, will show you the specialization of your clusters. So you will see, which are the hosts, which are the clusters where the number of VMs, for Windows Server, we see on this one, 27 VM per host on average, but we also have 5 VM per host on Red Hat. This is not good. You'd better have, your clusters fully specialized, either on Red Hat or Windows Server VMs, or on Red Hat Enterprise. So that's the first optimization I wanted to show about Windows, which is, you can understand your specialization of clusters. The second one will actually show the number of VMs per host, knowing that the threshold is classically, after 13 VMs per host. This is a good optimization of the infrastructure, and you should use data center because more VM won't cost more. And you see here that that's interesting because the size of the cluster is, as an ordinate. So total cores in cluster 768. This is a big cluster. The average number of VMs per host is 27. Excellent. This one is super optimized. while this one, for instance, is not optimized and this one is not optimized and would be worth, having more VMs, because having on average 5 VM per host is not good. So this is the type of visualization you can quickly and understand the big picture. Same type. Sorry, I have to leave this one. Okay, same type of analysis is on and again, once you think, okay, what's going on with this one, you can actually select that the interest, you can read through and see actually the list of VMs in this specific cluster, which explain and which turn out not to be well optimized. So you can every time select and drill down for each of the metric you see. And this one with ESX server is exactly the same type of analysis. So it will show you how many cores you have in the host, how many cores you have with the installed VMs. It makes a difference. So basically, if you have, let's say, 500 cores for host, but only 10 cores for VMs, it would be 495. The waste will be of 595 cores. So so very quickly, you get a visualization which gives you quickly, what are the issues, and again, what's happening with this one. Show me, on the hosts, on the ESX server level. So you see here the ESX, and then you can, check on the host summary, what is happening with this host, for instance, and understand, the details. So, and the last one I wanted to show, which is, again, going one step further, is about Oracle. So here you see your total saving for Oracle. Wow, that's intriguing. How come I could save 87 million? You can drill down. You will see option per option, what is the potential saving across clusters. And here you can drill down again and see for a given option, which are the clusters with the highest waste. So this is, I would say, basically, this is a visualization of the report I was showing. But here, with little bubbles and colors, and you get incredibly fast visualization of what is going well, what is not going well, and where you should focus your attention. So that's what I wanted to show in terms of extensions to what you can do with ITAM, thanks to this NSM Consulting Power BI solution. Okay, so that's it for today. Thanks for your time. I'm going to stop sharing, and maybe there are questions.
All right. Awesome job as always.
Thank you.
We did have a few questions, people wanting to, get the recording, get the deck, and that's all part of the package you signed up for. So you'll get an email that'll follow up with it. And then also for those that are new, you'll get a chance to see the library of webinars that Nicholas has done in the past. So if you like this kind of content and there's a particular topic that, you might be interested in, chances are Nicholas has already covered it. If not, tell us what it is and we can focus on that in the next round. Let's see what else here. So yeah, can this be shared? Yes. And I think there was a question around filtering within filtering in one of the chats. Can you filter the SAM optimization hub? View by product is not out of the box graph. I didn't see any filter capabilities on the view.
Yeah, for Power BI, yes, it's a natural path to show, publisher, product, and then you have a sort of natural drill down, which is set based on the Power BI configuration. The hub that we have, the SAM optimization hub, will actually stack together by publisher and what is behind the bar will be actually the flat report. And then the report you can group by your license. For instance, let's say you have an Oracle optimization of 5 million. You can then run this Oracle optimization, and then you will see in the report by a group of options, for instance, how much could be saved. But that's true. It's not completely native. There is no native drill down.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think there might have been a similar question. So I think we covered the questions. Okay. You had your audience from all over the world. Poland, Tennessee, Florida, UK, Virginia, New Jersey, South Africa, Germany, India.
Hello, world.
Hello, world. You are loved around the world. So awesome.
And really, so I think these sessions are good. If you come for the first time in this session, go back to the, there are two parts where you can find the past recordings. One is on YouTube. So I saw you pasted the YouTube playlist in the chat. Another is in the Flexera community. There is a events and webinar section where you can see the announcements, and you can actually subscribe to the announcement to the playlist. And there is also maybe I'm just going to show that very quickly. You have also the past session. So if you go to community.flexera.com, here we go. You have this, explore. It has moved a little bit recently, events and webinars. And then you will see here each. So first, subscribe. That's really, I'm not logged, so I cannot subscribe. But once logged, you can subscribe. And then, you see all these. And so there is a little issue we're fixing right now, that there was a migration of the Flexera community, but normally the files, attached files, are in the announcement. So we have to fix one or two things that they will come back, but the files are normally at the bottom, you see, with sometimes some issues. So we're fixing them, but past sessions have there even the PDF of the PowerPoint I'm showing, and not just the recording that you would find on YouTube.
Great. Like, subscribe, and share.
Yes. Exactly.
All right. I think.
Was I sharing or not?
Yeah, you were sharing. We saw it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, subscribe, and share.
I'm not sure how to stop sharing, but
and then click on the bell for notification.
Okay.
All right. Great session. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for all your questions. And until next time.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Bye.